I typically lean under towards that prop, but there will be some opportunities, some teams that are sitting there at top of the second round that may say, hey, we'd like to have a fifth round option on this quarterback. Let's get into the bottom of the first round and take a swing at a quarterback. I don't know if the Giants will be there. Of course, Denver doesn't have a second round pick. If they were to trade back, maybe they pick one up. Minnesota, what happens with them? So there's a lot still in play. But to me personally, I don't think we're going to see 5 quarterbacks in the first round right now.
Over under for offensive players selected in the first round is 20.5. There's no way that these sports books are not confused about this number. I'm trying to do the math on this. I guess I would take over given the nature of this class, but I'd have to think about it more, RJ. You're getting plus money at over, plus 125. Obviously, you need 12. You can only max out 11 defensive players, but whatever the math is to get there. My point is that I think the way this class is stacked with the offensive linemen, the wide receivers, and the quarterbacks, you're going to get to 8 or 9, maybe. I think we might be 12th overall before we see a defensive player draft.
Yeah, I think it's going to be right around this number, 20, 21, 19, somewhere around there. I think there's enough of an offensive line need and good late round 1 talent at receiver that I expect we do barely get over to 21. But, it's I think the margins are so slim there that I don't know if I'm going to play it at plus 125. And it's also these teams that need offensive linemen could cannibalize themselves by taking receivers instead. So it's not like you're getting an additional pick there. It's just shifting the position. So we'll see what happens there. But it's interesting when you go through the position of the first pick with a lot of these teams, there are a lot of offensive linemen. And I know we have offensive linemen on here at over under 9.5. And there's more teams than that are favored there to go offensive linemen for their first pick. So I just don't know that there's going to be enough of those prospects on the board when all is said and done. And if not, some team might have to pivot to going with an edge that isn't projected to go in first round or a cornerback. And then all of a sudden that's the small, slim margin to keep this under and go to 20 offensive players.
Sorry, my glasses are fogging up for some reason. Over under, Josh.
Well, if you look at my last mock draft, I would have to say over because I had 21. But I will say, just thinking through it, I think we're more likely to see certain defensive players slip into the first round as opposed to maybe some of the offensive options. So we're already pushing the margins a little bit with that 20.5. To me personally, I think some of the names that I'm hearing could get into the first round are typically defensive players. So for me personally, I think I would lean towards the under here.
Prop?
Not a lot of value on either side. Slight lean to the over.
All right, wide receivers, another heavily priced market. Over under 6.5. Wide receivers minus 190 to the under, plus 150 to the over. I mean, we talked about this on the pre-combine pod, Josh. So realistically, I don't know. I think 6.5 is probably too short at that plus price, only because this wide receiver class is loaded. The only concern you would have is if teams would say, all right, we think we can just get a guy in the second round. Don't need to use our first round pick on him, right? I'll go over here, though.
I'm actually going to go under. I don't think we're going to get 7 in the first round. I think what you'll see Harrison, you'll see Neighbors, you'll see Odunze, you'll see Brian Thomas. From there, it's kind of anybody's guess. You could get A.D. Mitchell from Texas. You could get Xavier Worthy from Texas, Ladd McConkey from Georgia. So there is a possibility that you could get there. But at this point in time, I think a lot of teams will look at that part of the draft and they'll say, this is a really deep class at the wide receiver position. How much of a difference is there between a guy that could be taken at number 25 overall, number 30 overall, as opposed to the guy that we can get at number 60 overall? I think that will be part of their strategic thought process. And I think we will see an under 6.5 at the wide receiver position.
RJ?
So what's interesting is, I don't know all the people that were in Josh's mock draft there, but if you like the over on the 20.5 for offensive players, I think you just play this receiver over 6.5 plus 150, because I think you would need 7 receivers to get to that number. So, especially if what we're talking about is lean on the quarterbacks too. If you lose a quarterback, then we're going to get some receivers in the back end of the first round that you should be going for. So I think it's going to be 5 or 6, but I'm not going to play it at minus 190. And I would be more interested in playing the over here than I would the offensive player number.
Prop?
Yeah, I think 7 is a big number personally. So I would give a slight lean to the under here.
This is hilarious. This is like a legitimately hilarious number. For number of running backs selected in the first round. Have you seen the juice on the under here? This is so stupid. It's like minus 1,800. I mean, what do we do? Like, we just don't even put the market up, man. I guess I would take the over because it's 9-1, right, RJ?
No, I'm not playing it at 9-1. I mean, I just don't think there's going to be a running back taken. I'm also not playing minus 1,800 on anything. If it was the day before the draft and we still got minus 1,800, maybe, I'd play $90 to make $5. But even then, what's the point at that point?
Just take the market.
You're just gonna get yourself flagged, like Alex was talking about at the top, by and get limited on other bets you actually do want to make. So. This is just one to avoid. I don't think there's any running back going in the first round.
Over under on offensive line. Everybody's taking the under here. Over under on offensive lineman 9.5. Under is minus 130. Over is even money. Oh, excuse me. Oh, that's flipped. That's flipped. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Over is minus 150. Under is plus 125. Josh, the offensive line class is stacked. It feels like there's a lot of guys in this class who it's like. Played a lot of right tackle, could shift inside to guard, might move to center. And I would think that sort of versatility lends itself to maybe you see more guys go in the first round, but that's a big number.
Yeah, I think that is a big number. And again, it's right on the threshold. As it turns out, Vegas often knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And again, if you're somebody that thinks we're going to get over 20.5 offensive players in the first round, then you will have to be on board with over 9.5 offensive linemen going in the first round. There's a ton of offensive tackles. There's a lot of interior offensive linemen, guys with versatility that can play multiple positions. We talk about the tackles offense all the time. You've got Joe Alt, you've got Olu Fashanu, you've got Talise Fuaga, you've got JC Latham, you've got Amarius Mims, and then the interior guys, you've got Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Tyler Guyton is an offensive tackle that could get in there. I mean, you're already up to 8. So there could be 1 or 2 other guys that get into that conversation as well. But it's a big number. But if you're over 20.5 offensive players in the first round, you're probably going to be betting the over here as well.
It's too big of a number. I think 10 is a lot. I mean, you named all the guys you could, and you got to 8, and you're still talking. Okay, now you got to go find 2 more. Maybe tackle from Arizona is 1. I think it's just too much of a stretch. At a certain point, these teams are going to be like, do we take the 7th offensive lineman on our board, or do we go get Chop Robinson or someone like that? So, I mean, for me, 10 is just a lot. It's interesting. These odds have shifted so much in the morning. The odds that Brinson said were correct, where it was.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, they've shifted that much today. That's crazy.
And now just in a couple hours, everybody's pounding this over. I think I'm probably a respected mock draft came out or something that put a bunch of more offensive linemen in there. So are we going to get to 10 at minus 150? I definitely couldn't play minus 150 to go over 9.5. I would look at plus 125 on the under, but I think that's kind of my lean at this point.
You're over under here, prop.
I don't have a strong take here, Brinson. I'd again just look at the price, considering the number being as big as it is at plus 125. I'd look to the under here.